It's now been officially announced that Devin Haney is going to defend his WBC lightweight world title against Jorge Linares at the Mandalay Bay Sports Center on the 29th of May in Las Vegas, live on DAZN. We're going to talk about that fight in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Budge, and of course you're tuned in to Talk to Budge. Please wipe your feet before you come in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, sign up to all notifications, so whenever I drop a new video, which is going to be daily, you're always the first to find out about it, the first to see it, and the first to hear it. Of course, we're building up this channel from the very beginning, from the ground up, and I need your help and your support in being able to do so. So share the content with your friends, with your family members, with your WhatsApp groups. Leave a comment below. I'm giving my opinion and perspective on this particular topic, but I want to hear from you as well. What's your view on it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a different take? I want to hear from you, man. And please help me to build this channel, okay? Like I said, we are starting from the grassroots, man, from the very beginning. So all your help and your support is very much welcome. Now, as I alluded to in the intro, it's now official. It's been announced that Devin Haney is going to defend his WBC strap at 135 pounds versus Jorge Linares. Now, going into that fight, Devin Haney has a record of 25-0, 15 wins coming by way of knockout. His most recent fight was a fight defending his title against Yuriorkis Gamboa, who is the best name on his resume as things stand. It was a complete shutout win versus Yuriorkis Gamboa. He won every single round, and it was a dazzling performance, man. From a pure boxing perspective, he really showed the sweet science, and of course that name on his resume is brilliant for him. However, he came under a lot of scrutiny, and his performance was heavily criticized because of the fact that ultimately he didn't stop Yuriorkis Gamboa. And of course, that Gamboa, who's 38 years of age now, is certainly in the twilight of his career. That being said, I personally don't agree with a lot of the criticism that Devin Haney was getting for that performance, because in the fight prior to the fight against Devin Haney, Yuriorkis Gamboa fought against Gervonta Tank Davis. And even though Tank stopped Gamboa ultimately in the 11th round, I think it was, Tank was fighting against a one-legged Gamboa. Gamboa sprained or snapped his Achilles tendon early on in that fight. I think it might have been as early as the second or third round. So for the majority of that fight, Gamboa was fighting on one leg. And it took Tank until the very later stages, the championship rounds of that fight, for him to stop Gamboa. So that goes to tell you everything that you need to know about Gamboa. The fact that he is a wily old veteran. He knows his way around the ring. He knows how to be defensively sharp enough, and knows all the tricks in the book to survive. He knows how to survive. And the fact that, you know, he managed to survive that long against Tank, who is probably the biggest puncher at 135. The fact that he managed to last that long versus him with one leg goes to show that, you know, he knows how to keep his wits about him in the ring. So for that reason, I feel like the criticism of Devin Haney's performance, because of the fact that he didn't stop him, was unjustified, to be completely honest. But anyway, it's the best name on Devin Haney's resume at this point in time, going into that Jorge Linares fight. On the flip side, you've got Jorge Linares, who goes into that fight with a record of 47-5, 29 wins coming by way of knockout. He, of course, is a 3-division world champion. He's won world titles at 126 pounds, 130 pounds, and of course, 135 pounds at lightweight. And he's been in there with the best, right? Jorge Linares is a seasoned vet. He's very technical. He's very, very skilled. And he's been in there with very, very top opposition. We've seen him get in there with Vasily Lomachenko, and actually was the first person that we saw knock down Vasily Lomachenko, who was long regarded as #1 pound for pound, the Matrix, the guy that we hadn't seen since, I don't know, and the guy that was drawing comparisons to Sugar Ray Leonard and Muhammad Ali and all of that kind of stuff. We remember Bob Arum billing him up with those kind of accolades. He was the first guy to drop him. Ultimately he lost that fight, but the first guy to drop him. He, of course, has been in the ring with Luke Campbell, who's an Olympic gold medalist and who's mixed it at the top level as well. Of course, he recently lost to Ryan Garcia via that left hook to the liver, which was an absolute deadly shot. And he's also been in the ring with Anthony Crolla on 2 occasions, beating him on both of those occasions. And of course, we know Anthony Crolla has been British champion and also been lightweight world champion with the WBA, right? So he's been in there with some seasoned opponents. He knows his way around the ring. That is, of course, Jorge Linares. He's been around the block. And I feel that this particular fight is going to be an interesting one because of the fact that both these fighters, in Devin Haney and Jorge Linares, have great ring IQ, have great skill, use a lot of lateral movement, very, very high technique. And so I feel like it's going to be a high-speed chess match. Honestly, I think the styles are going to mash very, very well. And we're going to see boxing masterclass, honestly, in this particular fight. Now, his losses, that is Jorge Linares, his 5 losses have all been stoppage losses. So every single time he's lost, he has been knocked out or stopped by his opponent. And the reason why that in particular is poignant, going back to the point that I made earlier about Devin Haney's most recent performance being criticized, is the fact that, of course, if every single one of Jorge Linares' losses have been via stoppage, the public perception will be that if Devin Haney doesn't stop him as well, then he hasn't done enough. And that is, for me, fundamentally flawed, because we know that Devin Haney isn't necessarily the biggest puncher. He's a pure boxer. He, of course, has he has a certain amount of knockouts on his resume. He's got 15 knockouts, but we don't know him to be a huge puncher. To get the #1 contender spot when he was being ranked by the WBC, when Vasily Lomachenko still had the WBC title, he fought against Zaur Abdullayev and he stopped him, and that was a great punch. I think it was the overhand right that ultimately knocked out Abdullayev. So that was a great knockout. But when you're looking at the very, very top level, of course, he hasn't really knocked anyone out at the absolute elite world level. I'm saying that, but I contradict myself to a certain extent because the sample size is very, very small. If we're looking at absolute top level, elite level opposition, the only person he's fought at that level has been Yuriorkis Gamboa, who he managed to go 12 rounds with, but beat him in every single round. So the sample size is very, very small. But I think it's unfair to judge him on knockouts if we know that he is a pure boxer that uses a lot of lateral movement. He moves well around the ring. He's got great IQ. He likes to box at range, mix things up. He's got a great jab and a lovely variety of punches. But of course, ultimately, the public perception will be that if he doesn't knock out Jorge Linares, who has been knocked out in every one of his 5 losses, that he hasn't done enough to justify why he should be right at the top of the lightweight division, and perhaps to justify why he should go into the next fight for him should be a unification for undisputed versus Teofimo Lopez. That's what, you know, ultimately Teofimo Lopez was saying after Devin Haney's last performance. You know, even though he put on that brilliant performance versus Yuriorkis Gamboa, there's been calls for Devin Haney to step up in opposition, and this is a step up for him. Jorge Linares is younger than Yuriorkis Gamboa. He's 35 years of age, and whilst he also is in the latter stages of his career, in the twilight of his career, he's younger, he's slightly fresher, and is seen as a step up for Devin Haney. Ultimately, whilst I do feel like it is going to be a great boxing matchup, I expect Devin Haney to come out with the win. I don't expect him to knock out Jorge Linares, and I think if he does, then it happens very, very late on in the championship rounds, the way that I see it. But I expect him to come out the victor of that particular fight. I think the fact that Jorge Linares is a little bit older and he's coming off a very, very long layoff. He was actually supposed to fight against Ryan Garcia, but then he caught COVID. And then he was supposed to fight, the fight between him and Javier Fortuna was supposed to be agreed, but that fell through as well. So when he does eventually get into the ring against Devin Haney, he's going to be coming off a 15-month layoff, you know. So and that again is even more fuel for Devin Haney's detractors. The fact that Jorge Linares is going to be coming off a 15-month layoff, so he hasn't been active, on top of the fact that he had COVID, on top of the fact that he's been stopped in every one of his other fights. Of course, everyone is going to be expecting Devin Haney to stop this guy, right? Again, like I said, I think it's unfair to judge him according to that, because we know he is a pure boxer. But people are going to say what they're going to say. People are going to have their point of view and their perspective. Ultimately, I think Devin Haney wins. I think he puts on a great show. And absolutely, there should be no reason why we can't get Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez for the undisputed title at 135 next. There should absolutely be no bottlenecks. There should be nothing standing in the way of that fight. That fight should have been happening now. Of course, we know that Teofimo Lopez went in a different direction, and he's going to be fighting against George Kambosos. I think that fight, although it hasn't been confirmed just yet, I believe that it's been earmarked to be early June. And of course, Devin Haney and Jorge Linares is going to be happening in May, late May. So it's happening that those two fights should be theoretically happening at around the same time. So God willing, there's no injuries. There's no, a lot of, harm done to those fighters in those respective fights. And everyone comes out with a clean bill of health. We should absolutely be able to see that fight later on this year, you know, for undisputed. Let's settle it. Of course, Devin Haney is the WBC champion. Teofimo's gone about parading the fact that he's undisputed. You know, that is an argument for another day. He's the WBC franchise champion that we know. Vasily Lomachenko's come out and he's clarified that as well and said that is Devin Haney that's got his former WBC title. So whilst there is this dispute about who is number one, who is truly undisputed, so on and so forth, that fight is a fight that absolutely needs to happen, and it should happen after this, and there's no reason why it shouldn't. But in conclusion, ultimately, like I said, I see Devin Haney coming out the victor in this fight against Jorge Linares. I see Teofimo Lopez beating George Kambosos, and that fight between Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez needs to happen afterwards. That's my take on it. That's my perspective. That's my point of view. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, a reminder, subscribe, like, share, all the rest of it. I need your help to build this channel. And until the next video, over and out.